His mouth and nose were covered with a white filter mask. "Get a mask on, are you crazy?" he said. Dooley moved like a quarterback to his battered temporary desk, where he popped open the top right-hand drawer and snatched out a filter packet. With his big hands, he tore off the plastic and tossed the mask to Mulder. "You FBI guys are supposed to be smart. I'd think you'd pay attention to a few simple safety precautions." Mulder sheepishly fastened the mask around his face with the long elastic band and breathed through the paper-smelling covering. He held his badge in his hand, flipping open his ID to display the photo and badge. "Bear Dooley, I presume. How did you know I was with the FBI?" The big man let out a loud laugh. "Are you kidding? A suit and tie means you're either with the Department of Energy or the FBI, and with Dr. Gregory's death I assumed you were FBI. We were told to expect you and to cooperate." "Thanks," Mulder said. "I've only got a few questions for you at the moment, so I'll try not to take too long. We're still at the beginning of our investigation." Dooley continued to unload his possessions from cardboard boxes, shoving folders into file cabinet drawers and dumping pens and notepads into the long center drawer on his desk. "First off," Mulder said, "can you tell me something about the project you and Dr. Gregory are working on?" "Nope," Bear Dooley said. "Can't tell you about it. It's a classified project." "I see," Mulder said. "Well, can you think of any unclassified way that any part of this project might have backfired and killed Dr. Gregory?" "Nope again," Dooley said. Mulder got the impression that Bear Dooley was always this gruff with newcomers, but that right now the man was particularly distracted. Perhaps he was more than a little overwhelmed to have the entire project thrust upon him so suddenly. Mulder tried to piece together a scenario where Bear Dooley, wanting to become the new big shot, would arrange for the death of the real project head, thereby setting himself up to become the obvious successor. But somehow it didn't ring true. Dooley didn't seem to be enjoying himself. "Maybe we'd better try a safer area. How long have you worked for Dr. Gregory?" Mulder asked. Dooley stopped and scratched his head. 4 or 5 years, I guess, most of the time as a technician. I worked hard, but now he's left me with a set of big shoes to fill." "How long have you been his deputy project director?" Dooley answered that one more quickly. 11 months, ever since Muriel flaked out on us." "What's all this stuff about the South Sea Islands?" Mulder said, gesturing to the photos. "Aerial images and weather patterns." Dooley shrugged and hesitated a moment as he concocted an explanation. "Maybe I'm planning a vacation. Get away from it all, you know. Besides, that's the Western Pacific, not the South Seas." "Funny. Dr. Gregory had similar photos in his office." "Could be we have the same travel agent," Dooley answered. Mulder leaned forward. He found it difficult to conduct a serious interrogation while both of them were wearing absurd filter masks. "Tell me about Bright Anvil." "Never heard of it," Dooley answered crisply. "Yes, you have." "You don't have a need to know," Dooley countered. "I have a security clearance," Mulder said. "Your FBI clearances don't mean a damn thing to me, Agent Mulder," Dooley said. "I've signed papers, I've gone to my security briefing, I know the level of classification my work falls under. Unlike certain other assistants of Dr. Gregory, I take my oath seriously." Dooley pointed a blunt, large finger at Mulder. "You might not realize this, Mr. FBI, but you and I are on the same side. I'm fighting for this country, doing what our government deems necessary. If you want a blabbermouth, why don't you go see Muriel Bremen at her Stop Nuclear Madness headquarters, then arrest her for divulging national security information? You can find the address in any one of 1,000 or so leaflets they left scattered in the ditches and along the fence yesterday. Go ask her your questions. She was around when Emil Gregory died, and she had plenty of motive to mess up our project." Mulder looked at him sharply. "Tell me more." Bear Dooley's color deepened as his long-standing resentment boiled to the surface. "She and her protesters were here the whole time. They threatened to stop at nothing to sabotage our work. Muriel would know how to do it since she worked here long enough. Maybe she's the one who planted something in Gregory's office. Maybe she's behind it all." "We'll check it out," Mulder said. "Now I've got a lot of work to do, Agent Mulder. I was already up to my nose in responsibilities, and now it's gotten even worse. Add to that the fact that I've been pulled out of my offices and stuck in this god-awful hole trying to make do, working on a project in a barracks building where I can't even pull out any of my classified papers." Mulder thought of something else as he stepped to the door. "I noticed in Dr. Gregory's office that some of his reports and papers had been taken away from the death scene. Disturbing the evidence at a crime scene is a serious offense. You didn't have anything to do with that, did you? All of our project reports are controlled documents, Agent Mulder, numbered and assigned to a specific user. Some of Dr. Gregory's reports were one of a kind. Maybe it was something we needed for our work. A project takes precedence. Over a murder investigation? Who told you that? Ask the Department of Energy. They might not tell you much about the project, but they will tell you that much. Mulder kept his cool. He reached into his pocket and removed one of his cards. This is the main office of the Bureau. You can reach me through the federal telephone system, or call me on my cellular if you think of anything else you can tell me. Sure. Julie took the card and offhandedly opened up the center desk drawer, already cluttered with pens and rulers, pushpins, paper clips, and other debris. He tossed the card inside where he would probably never be able to find it again, even if he wanted to. Mulder didn't get the impression Bear Dooley would want to. Teller Nuclear Research Facility, Wednesday, 12:15 p.m. Dooley wanted his old office back. He passionately disliked these temporary quarters. He felt as if he were camping in his own workplace. Roughing it, Mark Twain would have called it. Such distractions annoyed him. The Bright Anvil project was too important for him and his co-workers to make do while the investigation into Dr. Gregory's death continued. The project had a very narrow window of time, and conditions had to be exactly right. Just let Bright Anvil go off without a hitch, he thought, and the FBI agents could have all the time they wanted. He glanced at his watch. The new satellite images were 10 minutes overdue. Dooley reached for the phone. "Victor, where's the weather report?" he said without wasting time with a greeting or cordialities. His young assistant could certainly recognize his booming voice by now. "We've got it, Bear. I was just double-checking and triple-checking the meteorological projections. I think you'll like them this time around." "Well, get them over here," Dooley said, "so I can check them a fourth time. Things have to be exactly right." Dooley sat back in the creaking old chair, trying to get comfortable. Out in the halls, the construction workers continued their hammering and pounding, tearing down the walls. Plastic sheeting lay draped over everything as they ransacked another wing of the building. The barracks outside door opened, and Victor Ogilvy bounded up the wooden stairs, then down the linoleum hallway to Dooley's temporary office. He burst in, his face florid, grinning with the eagerness of Jimmy Olsen hot on a new story. His glasses slipped down his nose. "Here's the satellite printouts," he said, "and here's the overlays." He spread the projections on Dooley's cleared desk. "See the storm clouds here, Bear? 95% projection that it'll follow the path I've marked with red dashes." He traced a big-knuckled finger along a contour in the western Pacific, just past the international date line in the Marshall Islands. "I've looked for projected landfalls, and there seems to be an absolutely perfect target right here." Victor's finger completely obliterated a minuscule dot that looked like a printer's error in the middle of the ocean. Bingo. Dooley looked down. Anika Atoll. "Ooh, exciting," he said, reading the brief description. "A big flat rock out in the middle of nowhere. No recent photos, but it sounds tailor-made for our purposes. No existing settlements, not even any history." "Nobody will ever notice anything there," Victor agreed. "Hurricane warnings have gone out to all the adjacent islands. There's not much in the vicinity, only a few sparsely populated islands." Dooley nodded. "All right, let's start making phone calls. As of right now, I'm activating Bright Anvil. We're on our way. Let's get the Corps of Engineers flown out to Anika. Get our destroyer on standby down at Coronado Naval Base, ready to move out as soon as we arrive." The young assistant scuttled toward the door, but Dooley called after him. "Oh, and Victor?" The other man turned around, blinking owlishly behind his glasses, his mouth partly open. "Don't forget to bring the suntan lotion." Victor laughed and disappeared down the hall. Dooley stared down at the maps and weather charts again, letting a smile creep across his face. Finally, after all this time, they were going to move to the next step. There could be no turning back once the wheels started moving. Besides, he had to admit he wasn't terribly sorry to be away from those nosy FBI investigators. He had work to do.